road less travelled. It's a beguiling prospect, isn't it? That notion of doing a bit of spade work, going the extra mile to avoid the obvious, and turning up a gem is something we can all appreciate. And it's this idea that brings us to Lake's Entrance on Victoria's Gippsland coast. Plotting a route from sea to summit across 180 kilometres of Australia's most overlooked driving roads to the highest stretch of bitumen in the nation at Mount Hotham. It's been more than 2 decades since Mercedes-Benz last launched a production car with a straight six under the bonnet. The 1995 C36 was a landmark car, the very first model co-developed between Mercedes and its recently purchased AMG division. It was only on sale for a couple of years though, before being replaced by the V8-powered C43. AMG has built some absolutely cracking V8s in the intervening years, but this E53 Coupe marks the welcome return of the straight six. Now, why does that even matter? Well, if you care, and you should, the straight six is an inherently better balanced engine than either a V6 or a V8. And this one, with 320 kilowatts and 520 Newton meters on tap, promises to be an absolute belter. It's also technically intriguing. Not only is this an all-wheel drive vehicle with a new 9-speed transmission, but it's also a mild hybrid, so it's probably unlike any AMG you've ever driven before. There's a tiny electric motor that sits between the engine and the transmission, and that generates 16 kilowatts and 250 Newton meters of boost. This car's 48-volt architecture also features an electric compressor, which eliminates virtually any lag from the enormous twin-scroll turbo. And it's deceptively quick. The combination of all-wheel drive, that EQ boost and the electric compressor means it punches off the line really crisply without any histrionics. 100 kilometers an hour, comes and goes in 4.3 seconds. And that's seriously potent. EQ boost doesn't actually add anything to the peak power figure. It's all done and dusted by 2,500 RPM, so it's just there to give you a real punch off the line. Above that, you've got 500 RPM where the electric compressor is working, but peak power comes way up at 6,100 RPM, and the red line is only 400 RPM above that. This isn't an E63 AMG with the spiky bits rounded off, not even close. The E53 is a more complex character, and that could make it a bit of a difficult sell for Mercedes-AMG. Some real depth of engineering and thought has gone into it. I like that. Why? Because the E53 Coupe manages its compromises really smartly. All too often we think of compromise as a criticism, something that should be avoided, but we buy cars on compromise, not on absolutes. And the E53 manages comfort versus pace, practicality versus elegance really, really well. Ride quality in comfort mode is predictably excellent, but to really bring this car to life, switch it into Sport Plus. There you feel it hunker down on its suspension. You get a more aggressive throttle map. You get a spikier transmission calibration. And listen to that. That's what we've waited 20 years for. Above 5,000 RPM, you get that characteristic straight six wail. It sounds fantastic. It's like nothing else. I could probably use a little bit more heft in the steering, and it's a weighty thing. At 1925 kilos, there's a lot of car there to be throwing around. The brakes are up to it, but you just have to manage the weight transfers through tighter corners like this one. Because the Mercedes-AMG E53 Coupe is such a complex character, it could easily be the sort of car that buyers just don't get. In a way, that's both its weakness and its strength. It'll be dismissed by some because it doesn't have that hot rod feel of a V8 powered AMG. But there's a lot to be said for subtlety and bandwidth, and the E53 majors on both. It emerges as a considered, cerebral choice. The more time you spend with it, the more you'll appreciate the subtle blend of talents of AMG's exotic outlier. Just don't expect love at first sight. Like the road less travelled, this one takes a little time to get to know, but it's time very well spent.